There's something special about going back to games that once consumed your every free moment. So today, I'm revisiting 20 of the best games from 2010 to 2020 that are still just as brilliant in 2025. Maybe even more now that time has added some perspective. Let's get into it. Revisiting Red Dead Redemption 2 in 2025 feels like stepping back into a living, breathing world that time hasn't touched. Rockstar's attention to detail still feels unmatched. The subtle animations, the conversations you stumble upon, the shifting weather that changes the mood of entire regions. But what truly lingers is Arthur Morgan's journey. His arc is complex, often quiet, filled with regret, loyalty, and fading hope. It's a game that doesn't rush you, and in that space, it creates room to reflect. Riding through the wilderness as the sun rises, or simply playing poker with the gang at camp, feels more intimate now. Having known where Arthur's path leads, the second playthrough carries a kind of weight that didn't hit the same the first time around. And in 2025, after dozens of new games have come and gone, few still capture the soul of a fading era quite like this. It's a reminder that games can be slow, deliberate, and profoundly human. God of War 2018 wasn't just a soft reboot, it was a reimagining of what the franchise could be, and it still holds up in 2025 as one of the most tightly crafted experiences of its generation. The bond between Kratos and Atreus adds emotional depth that gives every axe throw and puzzle a sense of purpose. The Leviathan axe feels as good to throw now as it did 7 years ago, and the game's one-shot camera perspective keeps you tethered to every moment. Combat is brutal yet thoughtful, and boss fights demand more than button mashing. They ask for rhythm, strategy, and precision. Returning now, knowing where the relationship is headed, makes every quiet moment more meaningful. Watching Kratos wrestle with his past while trying to guide his son without repeating the same mistakes hits even harder with time. If you missed any of the Valkyries or didn't explore all the realms, there's never been a better time to give this modern myth another run. There's a reason The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt continues to be recommended even years after release. Its storytelling, world building, and player agency remain some of the best in RPG history. Playing it again in 2025 offers something special. You already know the political threads and major twists, so you start focusing on the quiet stories. The grieving werewolf, the cursed tree spirit, the broken families scattered across Felon. Geralt is such a grounded protagonist. He's world-weary, honest, and often cynical, yet always drawn into helping others, even when it's messy. The combat, while not as flashy as newer titles, still feels responsive and strategic, especially when you lean into signs, potions, and prep. With the complete edition and visual updates available, the world feels even richer. Skellige's cliffs, Novigrad's alleys, and Tucson's rolling vineyards all remain unforgettable. It's the kind of game where even side quests can feel like their own short stories, making it a must-revisit experience. Revisiting The Last of Us Part 1 in 2025 is like reopening an old scar. Painful, but worth the reflection. The tension, the moral ambiguity, and the way Joel and Ellie's relationship develops are all still as gripping now as they were a decade ago. What's more impactful this time is the small stuff. The way Ellie whistles at nothing, the jokes she tries to crack in quiet moments, and how Joel slowly lets his guard down. The combat is still gritty and deliberate. Every bullet feels earned, and every stealth takedown is a risk. The sound design pulls you into every creak of the floorboard or the distant clicker echoing in a hallway. If you're returning after playing Part 2 or watching the show, this first journey hits differently. You notice Joel's silence more, Ellie's curiosity more, and how fragile their world really is. It's not just about surviving, it's about why you're surviving and who you're doing it for. That still holds true even now. In 2025, Assassin's Creed Odyssey still feels like one of the boldest steps the franchise ever took. It's a sprawling, colorful epic set in ancient Greece that lets you live a myth rather than just explore history. Whether you chose Cassandra or Alexios, the game gave you real freedom. Dialogue choices, branching storylines, and a huge world where no two players had the same path. The combat may have leaned into RPG mechanics more than previous titles, but it worked. Abilities like Spartan Kick and Hero Strike are satisfying, especially when used tactically in large-scale battles or conquest wars. But what makes it worth revisiting now is how personal it feels. The story of a broken family, a lost sibling, and the legacy of the first civilization has real weight. And sailing the Aegean never gets old. The mix of exploration, mythology, and philosophical questions creates a version of Greece that's rich in personality and still a joy to get lost in today. Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, still feels ahead of its time in 2025. The freedom it offers is staggering. You're dropped into a battlefield where every mission can be approached a dozen different ways, and the game simply trusts you to figure it out. Whether you prefer crawling through the grass at night with tranquilizers or storming in loud with air support, the sandbox lets your creativity shine. Big Boss's story might feel fragmented, but the sense of loss and obsession runs deep through every tape and mission log. It's a game that quietly builds its themes across dozens of hours. The buddy system, base management, day-night cycle, it all still holds up. What makes it worth coming back to now is how complete it feels once you know the systems. You're not fumbling, you're planning. And in those perfectly executed missions where everything clicks, you remember why Kojima is often called a visionary. This isn't just a stealth game, it's a war simulation with a soul. Revisiting Middle-earth's Shadow of Mordor today feels like a reminder of how innovation sometimes gets overlooked with time. The Nemesis system remains its standout feature. Every orc you fight has a name, a history, and often a grudge. The idea that enemies remember you, react to you, and evolve because of you still feels refreshing even after so many years. It creates a personal war narrative, one where revenge isn't just a plot device, it's a mechanic. Talion's blend of ranger skills and wraith powers keeps combat fast and layered, letting you chain stealth kills, teleport, and unleash chaos with style. The story, sitting somewhere between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, adds just enough lore to make Mordor feel alive. While the sequel expanded on everything, there's something pure and tightly focused about this first game. It's not trying to be anything other than an inventive open-world revenge tale, and it still delivers that brilliantly. Uncharted 4: A Thief's End isn't just about climbing cliffs and chasing treasure, it's about growing older, settling down, and being pulled back into the chaos you thought you left behind. Nathan Drake's last big adventure is beautifully paced, filled with smart puzzles, smooth platforming, and action sequences that feel like handcrafted set pieces. But what lingers more than the explosions is the emotional maturity. Scenes with Elena, conversations with Sam, and the glimpses into Nathan's past all add weight that the earlier games only hinted at. The Madagascar chase still feels exciting. The shipwreck in the cave still feels tense, and the final scenes feel earned. Replaying it now with time behind it gives you more appreciation for how much Naughty Dog put into making this feel like a goodbye. Quiet, thoughtful, and earned. It's a reminder that action games don't need to be loud all the time. Sometimes they just need to be honest.
Oh, crap!
Resident Evil 7 was a reset the series desperately needed, and even now, it hasn't lost its bite. Switching to a first-person view gave the horror a new kind of intensity. You're no longer watching the terror unfold, you're in the middle of it. The Baker family is grotesque, unpredictable, and impossible to forget. Each encounter feels like a nightmare you can't quite escape. What makes this game such a rewarding return in 2025 is how tight and focused it is. There's no bloat, no distractions, just creeping dread, smart puzzles, and the constant sound of floorboards creaking above your head. It brings back the resource management, claustrophobic design, and pacing that defined the early entries, but with modern polish. And once you've played through the later entries in the series, coming back to where this new era started makes everything feel more connected. The house, the tension, the helplessness, it all hits just as hard the second time around. Horizon Zero Dawn stood out the moment it launched, and it still feels just as fresh now. Its post-apocalyptic world isn't gray or lifeless. It's colorful, overgrown, and filled with mechanical beasts that are as beautiful as they are deadly. Playing as Aloy again in 2025, you start to appreciate just how much the game trusted its player. The story doesn't rush you. It unfolds as you explore, talk, scan, and piece together what happened to the world. The combat remains one of its strongest elements. Taking down a Thunderjaw with traps, arrows, and quick thinking never stops being fun. What truly elevates the experience now is returning with knowledge of its world and systems. You're no longer learning. You're hunting with purpose. And even after newer open world games have raised the bar, Horizon holds its ground. The writing, the lore, and the music all still carry weight. It's more than just a game about machines. It's about identity, discovery, and legacy. Nier Automata isn't the kind of game you play just once and move on from. It's layered in a way that invites reflection even years later. The gameplay blends fluid action combat with bullet hell elements and unexpected genre shifts, but it's the storytelling that stays with you. 2B, 9S, and A2 aren't just androids fighting a war. They're characters unraveling the meaning of their own existence. The game doesn't hand you answers. It presents perspectives, themes, and heartbreak in subtle, often quiet ways. Each of its multiple endings recontextualizes everything you've seen before, and going through them again in 2025 with hindsight and understanding makes the narrative even more impactful. The soundtrack remains hauntingly beautiful, echoing the loneliness and tragedy of a world forgotten by its creators. It's one of those rare games that combines philosophical depth with engaging gameplay. And revisiting it now feels more like rereading a novel that meant something to you once, and still does. There's a haunting quality to Hellblade's Senua's Sacrifice that never really leaves you, even after you've finished it. It's a focused, emotionally intense journey that explores mental illness with rare sensitivity and power. Senua's descent into a mythological hell mirrors her personal grief and trauma, and playing it again in 2025, especially with the context of its sequel, makes every whisper, shadow, and hallucination feel even more significant. The binaural audio, best experienced with headphones, immerses you in her fractured mind in a way few games ever attempt. Combat is deliberately sparse, used more as punctuation than spectacle, but it still hits with weight. The environmental puzzles encourage you to see the world through a different lens, one shaped by fear, pain, and determination. Replaying it isn't about mastering mechanics, it's about re-entering Senua's world with more empathy and awareness. Even after all these years, it remains deeply personal and quietly unforgettable. Rise of the Tomb Raider strikes a perfect balance between cinematic storytelling, satisfying exploration, and challenging tombs. In many ways, it represents the high point of the reboot trilogy. Lara is no longer just surviving. She's driven, determined, and evolving into the explorer she was destined to be. Revisiting it in 2025, the snowy Siberian wilderness still looks gorgeous, and the semi-open hub design gives you the freedom to dig into side missions, hidden crypts, and lore-rich collectibles. The bow mechanics and traversal remain fluid and responsive, and the sense of progression through gear upgrades and skills is as rewarding now as it was then. What makes it special today is how confidently it blends storytelling with gameplay. Lara's personal journey intertwines with ancient mysteries and modern threats, creating a narrative that's engaging without being overbearing. It's a great reminder that adventure games can be both emotionally grounded and filled with excitement, without ever losing their sense of wonder. Detroit Become Human thrives on its branching narrative and the sheer weight of the choices it offers. Even now in 2025, going back feels like exploring a new path in a familiar city. You notice details you missed, try decisions you avoided, and understand the characters on a deeper level. Kara, Connor, and Marcus each offer distinct stories that intersect and diverge in meaningful ways. What's remarkable is how many outcomes still feel natural, even when they're drastically different from your previous run. Visually, it still holds up well. The facial animations, motion capture, and environments sell the world of a near-future Detroit with impressive authenticity. But more than visuals, it's the emotion that sticks. Scenes of quiet rebellion, kindness under pressure, or moral compromise still land just as hard. Revisiting the game isn't just about what-if scenarios, it's about understanding how context changes everything. Your decisions aren't just remembered, they're felt. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice doesn't ask you to play it, it demands your attention. In 2025, that sharp focus on precision and timing is still as rewarding as ever. It's a game about mastery, and revisiting it now, especially after stepping away for a few years, reminds you just how tightly designed it really is. The posture-based combat forces you to stay aggressive, read patterns, and stay composed under pressure. Boss fights are more than just skill checks, they're duels that demand respect. But it's not just about mechanics. The world of Sengoku-era Japan, infused with myth and decay, has a distinct personality that seeps into every ruined temple and forest path. The story, told with From Software's signature restraint, becomes clearer on a second playthrough, and the connection between Sekiro and his lord takes on new meaning. Beating a boss you once struggled with years ago, that sense of earned victory still feels unmatched. Few games reward growth this directly. Dishonored 2 is one of those rare sequels that takes everything good about the original and sharpens it into something unforgettable. Whether you choose to play as Corvo or Emily, the game gives you powers that encourage experimentation, Blink, Domino, Possession, Shadow Walk, all opening up countless paths through each level. But what makes the game so timeless, even in 2025, is the level design. Areas like the Clockwork Mansion and a crack in the slab aren't just locations, they're puzzles, environments that challenge your creativity in ways most games don't dare to. The world is steeped in lore, with books, overheard conversations, and visual storytelling, revealing more than just what's on the surface. Playing it again now with a stronger grasp of the systems and story gives you the chance to approach missions with more confidence and finesse. It's not just about stealth or chaos, it's about carving your own signature into every moment of the game, and that never gets old. Marvel's Spider-Man is still one of the most enjoyable superhero games ever made. The act of swinging through New York City remains fluid, exhilarating, and just plain fun, even in 2025. The game strikes an ideal balance between emotional storytelling and energetic gameplay. Peter Parker's dual life is portrayed with care, showing the strain between responsibility and sacrifice without over-dramatizing it. The combat system is fast and dynamic, allowing for seamless transitions between aerial attacks, gadgets, dodges, and finishers. Side activities and collectibles are plentiful, but rarely feel like filler. Replaying it now, especially with newer games in the series out, adds even more value to the original. You recognize early foreshadowing, you appreciate smaller story beats, and you get to relive those standout missions all over again. From the relationships to the city itself, everything still feels alive and rewarding. It's a reminder that when done right, a game can make you feel like a hero without needing to shout it. By 2025, Cyberpunk 2077 has transformed into the game it was always meant to be. Replaying it now feels like stepping into a night city that's truly alive, dense with activity, meaningful side stories, and a real sense of place. The technical issues that once defined it have largely faded, and what remains is a bold, mature RPG that doesn't pull punches. V's journey, whether as a merc with nothing to lose or someone searching for purpose, feels more personal the second time around. With the expansions and updates integrated, there's more to explore, more choices to consider, and more ways to shape how it all ends. The dialogue is sharp, the characters, especially Johnny Silverhand, are flawed and layered, and the world design is still among the most ambitious in the genre. If your first run was rushed or cut short, a return in 2025 brings new clarity and appreciation. It's not just a comeback story for the developers, it's one for players who stuck with it. Control is a surreal, stylish, and deeply atmospheric experience that still stands out years later. The Federal Bureau of Control is one of the most unique locations in gaming, a shape-shifting building filled with secrets, danger, and questions that rarely get direct answers. Jesse Faden's journey is about taking control both literally and figuratively, and the game expresses that through its tight combat, telekinetic powers, and rich lore. The sense of mystery, supported by sharp writing and detailed environmental storytelling, makes every corner feel important. Replaying it in 2025, especially with a clearer understanding of the world, gives new meaning to audio logs, documents, and cryptic encounters. The atmosphere is thick with tension and curiosity, and the art direction, brutalist architecture clashing with supernatural chaos, still holds up visually. It's a rare game where story, mechanics, and world design all orbit a single idea and amplify it. That consistency makes it well worth revisiting. Ghost of Tsushima remains one of the most visually stunning and emotionally resonant open-world games ever made. Sucker Punch captured the spirit of samurai cinema and gave players the tools to live it. Jin Sakai's internal conflict, torn between honor and necessity, is handled with care, and the island of Tsushima feels alive in a way that's more poetic than literal. The wind guiding you to your next location, the haiku spots, the fox shrines, they're all gentle reminders of how peaceful and brutal this world can be. Combat is refined, allowing for different stances, duels, stealth, and strategic use of gadgets. Replaying it in 2025, especially with the director's cut improvements and Iki Island expansion, only deepens the experience. The story beats hit harder when you know what's coming. The silence after a duel, the tension in a standoff, the way characters grow and fall apart, it all lands with greater impact. It's more than a game about war. It's about what's left when the war is over. So there you go, 20 unforgettable games from 2010 to 2020 that are absolutely worth playing again in 2025. Let me know which one you're planning to revisit first, or if I missed your personal favorite, drop it in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.